Hello and welcome to Mint. This is P.R. Sanjay here. Today we are going to discuss an exciting development. There is a major acquisition in microfinance industry. After the microfinance industry has hit major crisis in October 2010, this is the first major acquisition. Mumbai-based Intellecash has acquired a Kolkata-based Arohan, a microfinance firm, and we are joined here with the national writer Dinesh Unnikrishnan. Dinesh, could you tell us, this is a major acquisition after the industry has hit a major crisis in exactly 2 years ago. What would this mean to the industry?
You're right, Sanjay. Thanks. They have done a complex deal, sort of. Intellecash. I mean, a combination of, I would say, direct and indirect investments in this Kolkata-based Arohan. What makes it special, and you have mentioned it already, is that this is the first major investment and acquisition, in the Indian microfinance sector, which was sort of a taboo for both domestic and global investors. Ever since the crisis hit the sector, there was no appetite. There was nobody, to come forward and put in money. So probably this is, we can look at it in two ways. One, this is the beginning of a large-scale consolidation. Because there are so many weak institutions, microfinance institutions after the crisis, who are struggling to survive because of the liquidity crunch. Still, banks are not funding. Private investors are more or less staying away even now. So this might force a lot of institutions to merge with stronger ones, and probably this is one of the first such deals.
Second one, what would be the second?
Second aspect is that there are people who look at this deal as the beginning of real impact of the crisis. The crisis has left many healthy MFIs. For instance, Arohan, it's based in Kolkata. It is far away from the crisis where crisis has happened in Andhra Pradesh. But still, the ripple effects of that crisis, banks stopped lending to even those smaller MFIs in East or in North. And Arohan is one of the victims. So you can look at it that way also. So, suppose the crisis didn't happen and if things were okay, probably Arohan would not have been in a situation to get acquired by this entity. So you can look at it that way also.
So for example, do you think that this acquisition will have any change, a magnanimous, a dramatic change in the case of, I'm looking from a borrower, with this kind of a consolidation triggered in the industry, do you think that I will be, banks will be, in a better position to give money to these microfinance organizations, which is they're struggling to stay afloat? And what will be the future for the real borrowers who are approaching for these kind of small MFI companies?
See, we have said in the story that, when quoting many experts, yes, when a major transaction happens in an industry which is more or less dormant, this will, of course, encourage other investors to come forward and to do similar transactions, because the sentiment is what matters. If there are positive sentiments from investors' side, and obviously this will help others, to come forward and do investments. So that will help a revival of this sector, these companies, and the plight of borrowers, what it is today, they're not getting money from MFIs, which is directly linked to the revival of these institutions. Once the industry returns to the path of normalcy and start lending to these people, obviously that category of borrowers will benefit.
Dinesh, you've been tracking the sector so closely, and we've been fortunate to read a lot of breaking stories from your side. So it's a rather difficult question. Is it a consolidation which is needed for this sector? Do you think that will actually revive, or it largely a policy issue where we've been reading your stories about how the Apex Bank and commercial banks treating these MFIs? What is the way out? Is it consolidation or a larger policy reform?
So I would think that consolidation is highly essential, because like we know, microfinance sector, unlike commercial banking space, is we have around 1,000 such institutions. Not only those incorporated as NBFCs, there are trusts, NGOs, small groups. So microfinance is a common word for all these groups.
Okay.
So in this context, we have seen a correction phase after the crisis, which has obviously left banks very cautious to lend to this segment. Okay. So most of these smaller ones might not be able to survive.
Okay.
Because of lack of funding. Investors are very cautious. So that leaves them as weak institutions. Okay. So rather than surviving as weak institutions and struggling to serve their borrowers, it's in my opinion it's better to consolidate and become a industry of few large institutions which are capable to do their duty, rather than having 1,000 smaller ones which are weak and struggling.
Thanks, Dinesh. Thanks for sharing valuable insight. For Arohan is just beginning of a larger consolidation play in microfinance industry. For more details and more insight to read our story, log on to www.liveman.com.